Hello, my name's Elizabeth, and I'll be sharing a story I wrote about the lessons I learned from my dog. Some of you may be able to relate with what I went through, and perhaps some of you may have a hard time with some of the decisions I made in regards to the care of my dog. I share the story in the hopes of expanding your horizons, opening your heart and mind, as well as encouraging you to think, what if? The what if story begins. Ladybugs, the cutest dog ever. LOL. I had the cutest dog ever. Now I know you'll say that may not be true, and from your perspective it may be correct, but from my opinion, I had the cutest dog ever. Here's a picture of her when she was a pup. And here's a little picture of her begging. She loved food. She loved people food. And this is when she was a little bit older. And there's a cute little picture of her sitting, looking out the front window with a miniature little dog, almost the same color and shape as her, and with her cute little bows from the grooming place. I will begin by telling you about the day that I chose Lady, or should I say, the day Lady chose me, which is etched in my mind. It was August 6th, and my niece and her friend were visiting me, and I asked them if they wanted to go look for puppies. Exuberantly, they said yes! So we looked in the newspaper, and as I write this, I giggle because newspapers are practically extinct nowadays. We found a listing for Dachshunds, and off we went across town to look, to discover, and see if I would become a dog owner. What if I fell in love with a dog and could not afford the dog? What if I could not find one that I wanted? What if I didn't have time to train the dog properly? What if the dog chewed on my shoes or the furniture? What if I could not afford the vet bills? What if the dog got lonely while I was at work? We arrived at the breeder's house, and I swear we were there for a couple of hours while I decided whether I wanted to spend this significant amount of money on a dog. I know. It should not have taken me that long to decide, but there was only one dog left of that litter that was ready to leave the nest, and there was another litter that would be ready in a few weeks. Decisions. I confess, I saw myself as house poor, and I was not sure whether I could comfortably afford spending money on a dog at that time. However, years later, I realized it was the best money I ever spent. Now I laugh because the cost of one Dachshund is equal to the total of 3 or 4 months worth of my mortgage. Boy, have times changed. As I mentioned previously, there was one tiny dog left of the litter that was ready to leave its mama. The dog was female, which is what I wanted. She was black with brown spots, and she seemed very nervous that people were checking her out, and she seemed sad that her siblings were gone. This dog was born at the end of May, which has made her a Gemini, the sign of twins. I'm a twin. Actually, I'm a twinless twin. But to steal a phrase from Dr. Bryant, the founder of the Twinless Twin organization, once a twin, always a twin. Anyways, back to the story at hand. At one point, as I was considering my options, my twin's youngest daughter smiled at me, a smile that went from ear to ear, and gave me the thumbs up sign, which indicated, go for it. How could I refuse that? Here's the clincher. When I sat down to pick up the pup, and I really looked at her, I saw that she looked similar to the character Lady in Lady and the Tramp, the book or the movie. I knew then she was mine because that was my twin's favorite book when we were very young. Unfortunately, I stepped on the spine of the book and I broke it. Boy, did she get upset. I don't remember if I did it on purpose or not, since that happened a long time ago. Apologies to my beloved twin. Here's a picture of Lady and her namesake, Lady and the Tramp. Anyways, I started thinking, what if it was a sign that she looked like Lady and the Tramp? What if it was a sign that she's a Gemini, which was a sign of twins? What if my twin was trying to send me a message or a gift? What if I named her Lady? Wouldn't that be a cute name? What if by buying her was a way I could honor my twin now that she was gone? Those questions helped me make my decision. I bought Lady, and off we went to Target to purchase dog supplies because I had no dog food, no dog bed, no crate, no pee-pee pads, nothing, nada, zip, nothing, since going to look for a pup was a spontaneous event. Since Lady was so tiny and she fit in the palm of our hands, we didn't want to leave her scared and alone in the car. So we put her in my niece's purse. This was before it was acceptable to bring dogs into the store, and took her on a first shopping expedition. Here's a picture of her in my niece's arm looking out the car window as we were about to take off from the breeder's house. It was wonderful having my niece and her friend visit for a week. And because it was such a short time, I wanted them to have the opportunity to bond with Lady while they were here. So I let them take care of her, feed her, pet her, hold her whenever they wanted. I figured I would have the rest of Lady's life to bond with her. However, within 2 days, Lady knew she was mine and preferred to be with me, although she was very tolerant of the girls, letting them love on her. Her bedtime ritual was to put Lady in the doggy crate downstairs with an alarm clock and a warm water bottle, so she would feel as if her doggy mama was sleeping nearby. After the girls returned home, I continued this ritual, but Lady began to whine at night, which I interpreted to mean that she did not like being downstairs alone. So I brought the crate upstairs and I put it in my room. She slept there for a few nights, but then she started to whine again. Oh no, not again. At that time, my job was so stressful I needed my sleep. I was desperate to have a good night's sleep without the baby waking me up. So in order to expedite this, I took her out of the crate and I put her in bed with me. Boy, was she happy. She settled right down and immediately went to sleep. I want to show you some pictures of her in the bed and how comfy she looks. There'll be no doubt in your mind that she went right to sleep. Now, this was not that day, but she definitely enjoyed sleeping in the bed. And here's a picture of her in my bed, although it looks like she's in her bed and she's all cuddled up between the pillows and the white comforter. She's all snug in a bug and a rug. Hopefully I said that right. Anyways, it was cute as all get out. I began to think, what if Lady could not breathe and smothered herself sleeping under the covers at the bottom of the bed? What if I rolled over on her and hurt her since she was so tiny? What if I could not sleep well with her in my bed? What if I accidentally knocked her off the bed and onto the floor? I should not have worried because from that point on she slept in my bed and none of my worries came true. Actually, I loved that she would burrow down under the covers or curl up, tucking herself right next to my tummy. I don't recall Lady having accidents in the bed until she was older, but found evidence of it once or twice throughout the years. However, I do recall her throwing up one night after her first plane ride. Yuck. Lady, whom I soon began to call Ladybugs because she was cute as a bug in a rug, she was scared to go upstairs to our bedroom. To help you understand, we have an open stairwell, and you could see the floor between each of the stair steps. She was afraid she would fall through, so I carried her up and downstairs for months. When she got a little older and braver, I no longer had to carry her up the stairs anymore, but she ran up the stairs, hugging the wall for security. It took her a little longer to go downstairs on her own, but she slowly got used to it. Ladybugs became so independent going up and downstairs on her own that at one time I realized that she thought she was the alpha in the household because she would often zip downstairs ahead of me. I had to have a little talk with her and tell her who really was the alpha of the house. I explained my role as alpha to her and that one of the things I did was lead the way. After that, she always followed me downstairs. Ladybugs was so cute and a joy to have around. She used to make me laugh. Her legs were maybe about an inch long, and since she was a mini Dachshund, she would run along the back patio, jumping off the edge, which would maybe about 6 inches high, flying for a few minutes in the air, with her ears straight out, reminding me of an airplane. It was one of the cutest things I ever saw. I wish I had gotten a film of that one. It was so precious. Ladybugs loved our backyard, and she would sniff around it daily to make things were all right. The one thing she didn't like in her backyard were squirrels. There was one squirrel that used to tease her unmercifully. He would taunt her and run along the top of the fence. She would run along the bottom of the barking all the way, probably telling him, "Get off my fence! Stay out of my yard!" What she did not know was that sometimes the squirrel would jump onto a tree branch or onto the neighbor's shed, and she would continue to run along the fence line barking. I would have to tell her that she could stop and relax because she was no longer chasing the squirrel. It would make me giggle. One night I gave Lady asparagus, which she seemed to like, but let me tell you a secret. Asparagus doesn't like dogs. The next morning I was getting ready to go out for a walk or a run, and to my surprise, I saw that lady had had an accident on the rug. I said to her, "Oh, you pooped on the rug," taking a step backward to go get some paper towels and stepped in another pile of poo. Before I went to work that day, I gave her the following instructions. "Lady, if you have to go potty again while I'm at work, go upstairs and poop in the bathtub." You'll never ever believe what I found in the bathtub. On a stack of Bibles. Yep, you're right. A poop. Dogs certainly do have intelligence and understand language better than we humans know. There's no accident that dog is God spelled backwards. One time this woman I met was able to communicate with animals, and she told me that Ladybugs knew she was a pretty dog, which indeed she was. She had a boyfriend named Flacco, who lived in the house behind us. Flacco was a handsome-looking pit bull that was 2 weeks older than Ladybugs. And here they are when they were a little pup. They would meet at the back fence and communicate through a hole in it. And he would whine, and she would snuggle up for some kisses, but then get bored and leave to go explore something else. He would whine for her to come back, but she would continue on with her exploration. And here is again, and there's Flacco and ladies, and there's right there. And it's hard to see, but she was so tiny and he was huge. But he loved her. It was actually precious. Ladybugs had another boyfriend, my friend's dog, named Jigs. He was a red Dachshund. And we thought about breeding them, but decided against it since Ladybugs had bow legs, which, although cute on her now, could lead to serious back issues when she was older if she were to have puppies. The years passed, and Ladybugs continued to be my person. We hung out together, took trips together, visited friends together, had a great time. After Ladybugs had some serious dental work done on her teeth when she was 13 years old, she was never the same. I know anesthesia affects people's brains, but apparently it does affect dogs too. Shortly after that procedure, Ladybugs did not seem to see as well, nor could she hear like she used to be able to. Then she started walking with her head tilted to the right, and would walk in circles in that direction. I asked my vet about it, but I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars on trying to figure out what was wrong, since she was almost 14 years old and figured that she did not have that much longer to live. One day I asked my neighbor, who was a vet, and she wondered if Ladybugs had a brain tumor. This made me very sad, but all the more determined to take care of her in a loving, caring manner until she passed away. What if I had not gotten her teeth taken care of? Would she be healthy and not experiencing those health issues? What if Ladybugs did have a brain tumor? What if I didn't know what to do to take care of her? I was concerned about Ladybugs. After all, I loved her more than anything. Even though it bothered me, made me sad to see her this way, I made a decision to take care of her until God called her home. I gave Ladybugs her medications, CBD oil, and some natural pain relievers, and when her suffering increased, I took her to the vets again. I cooked her meals, which was a service to the one I loved more than anything. As Ladybug's condition continued to deteriorate, her world shrank. I noticed Ladybug seemed to feel more secure in smaller or contained areas. Rather than having access to wander the whole house, she seemed content to be gated in our bedroom. Eventually, she needed even a smaller confined place, so I took 2 extra large boxes and taped them together, making her a safe place to live. She seemed to like it, and I could tell that when I took her out of it to spend time with me, she was happy to return to it. Near the end of her life, she started to move her front legs while she was lying down, as if she was running somewhere. I used to say to her, "Where are you going, baby girl? Where are you going?" My friends asked me if I planned to put her to sleep, and I said no. I'd made a decision to love this dog and take care of her however I could, making her comfortable and safe until God called her home. I said I was not God and would not make that decision to end her life. I believed that it was his job, and he knew what she needed, and he knew what she was teaching me. I also believe that everything God has created has a purpose and a season and a reason for being. The good book says, "Thou shalt not kill." And although I kill bugs, I believe that I am not put on this earth to harm life. I believe that animals or elementals hold the balance for the earth, as well as for individuals on this planet. I also believe that Ladybugs had to fully complete her assignment or purpose before she made her transition, and I had to learn all that I could from her in this situation before she passed. What if I put Ladybugs down? Would it be easier? Best? What if I let my friends talk me into putting her down when she first started to have difficulties? Then I would not have had the pleasure of loving her for 2 or 3 more years. What if Ladybugs was helping me learn to serve others, life, with love? What if Hinduism is correct and there's a soul evolution and Ladybugs was earning her wings to soar to another level of evolution? What if Ladybugs earned the status of becoming a human? What if terminating her life ended this opportunity for her? And what if I did not fully learn to love life freely? As I contemplated this situation I found myself in, I sometimes realized something about myself, and I wondered about society as a whole and their belief or ideas about one's quality of life. This led me to think, what if our animals were here to teach us to love all life unconditionally? What if the human race has become so self-centered that we would rather meet our own needs, do our own thing, and have fun than take care of loved ones, whether it be a person or our animals? What if the world is in the situation that it's in at this point in time because we've not respected the message, thou shalt not kill? What if struggle and strife and suffering in life serves a purpose for the soul or the animal, to learn something that we may not be able to see or understand otherwise? What if the soul or essence of being is enhanced by the process in ways that we can't fathom, like transmuting sin or karma? What if the argument about putting an animal down because of the quality of life is more about your own life and needs rather than the animal's quality of life? Because I contemplated putting Ladybugs down briefly a couple of times, I realized that it might be easier for people to put their animals to sleep than to watch them suffer. That perhaps people have become too focused on the activities in their daily life, so that when it was no longer convenient for them or the animals taking up too much time or effort, they put them down under the notion of quality of life. What's quality of life is the real question. I wondered about this because, as I said, I questioned myself a few times, wondering whether I was doing the right thing by letting God be the one to make the decision about when Ladybugs would transition. I realized that when I questioned myself about this or considered putting her down, that it was always to my advantage, and that I wanted to be relieved of the burden or responsibility of taking care of her. Then I wondered if that is one of the reasons we have so much killing going on. We no longer value life, ours, others, or our animals. I'm glad I stuck to my original decision and let God decide when it was her time to go, because it was an incredible process being there and loving her to the end. I prayed that Ladybugs would not suffer, and that she would die in her sleep, or that I would be there when her time came. I didn't want her to be alone and scared of what was happening to her. I knew she was close to passing when she threw up on a Monday and did not eat the rest of the week. I cuddled her and gave her water, talked to her and kissed her. I thanked her for all the joy she gave me, all the lessons she taught me, especially about how to serve with love and gratitude. I let her know she was absolutely the best. I told her all this many times before, and that she could go whenever God called her home. Well, he called her home on a Friday night. While I was holding her in my arms, I noticed that she was having little trouble breathing, which she'd experienced before, but this time she was puffing out little peaceful breaths, like little breaths of air, and her little tongue was peeking out the side of her mouth. Then she took her last breath. She was almost 17 and a half years old. The lesson I learned. Ladybugs taught me that how we treat the most vulnerable shows us who we are. Rest in peace, my sweet little dog. Rest in peace. A job well done and a life well lived, Ladybugs. I told her that I'll always love her because love never dies. Bye, my sweet girl. The end. Here's a precious picture of her that shows the true little essence of her being and her glory. Thank you for listening.